Hey JCA, happy November. We're making it through this year, which is really good. Happy Halloween to all those who celebrate. I'm really excited to bring to you another delicious and healthy meal. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about the benefits of eating animal protein, that some of the nutrients are more bioavailable for our body than when we try to get those same nutrients from vegetables. However, vegetables are packed with healthy nutrition, vitamins and minerals and fiber that feeds the bacteria in our gut. So I'm going to be making for you a delicious vegan recipe today that is complete nutrition. So let me explain that to you. When you eat animal protein, you are getting all the amino acids that are included in a complete protein. So protein is made up of 20 amino acids, and when you eat animal protein, you're getting all of those. When you eat vegetables, you're getting some amino acids in some of the vegetables, and you're getting other amino acids in other vegetables, but there's no one vegetable that has all the amino acids of a complete protein. But that does not mean that you can't get complete protein by eating a vegan diet. And the way to do that is by mixing some vegetables with other vegetables and with rice and with corn, and eventually you get an entire complete protein. So you absolutely can do that. And with today's meal, we are going to be getting a complete protein because I'm going to be mixing chickpeas. Hi Linda, I see you there. With rice. I'm not going to be cooking the rice right now. I'm going to be cooking rice later on tonight. But when you mix beans and rice together, you get a complete protein similar to if you were eating animal protein. So that's a good mixture. If you happen to be vegan, it's good to always try to combine rice and beans to get your complete protein. So let me explain to you what I have going on so far. I've already started to saute a combination of sweet potato, cauliflower, and carrot. So it already smells delicious in this kitchen, and you already know the drill. If you've been coming in with me, then I always explain that I cook the vegetables that take the longest. I put them in first so that they can have a little extra time to cook. I also save my seasoning of these vegetables to the end, because if you season them early on, it creates moisture and the vegetables don't brown as well. So I'm already doing all those things. I've put in the sweet potato, the cauliflower, the carrots. They're browning up, and I have not yet seasoned them. I have used a combination of fats to cook that in. So one is avocado oil, and the other is a little bit of ghee. And ghee is so you can use it in replacement for butter. I like it a little bit better than butter because, number one, it has a higher smoke point, so it won't burn when I'm cooking. And that's something you always want to be careful of when you're cooking with fat, is you don't want it to burn, because if it burns, it creates some damaging compounds that are not great for you. Give me one sec. I just don't want this wire to fall on me in the middle of my presentation. It looked like it was about to. Okay, so you don't want your fats to burn, and ghee has a high smoke point, and that's one of the reasons I use it. The other reason is because it releases, or it contains actually, something called short chain fatty acids. And I'm not gonna get into all the science behind that, but basically it's a compound that the good bacteria in your gut release to keep us healthy, to have a good healthy digestion. And so ghee has more of those short chain fatty acids than butter does. And the question is, yes, you can use ghee if you are vegan. It is clarified butter, and it doesn't contain the whey, or the whey in the casein. It's not considered, the way that it's processed, it's not considered animal protein. Some people will be a little bit more strict than that, so maybe there are vegan people who would be not so open to it. You can absolutely use coconut oil. That's a great suggestion, Linda, because coconut oil has a very high smoke point as well. And actually, coconut oil would have a really good flavor in the meal that I'm making right now. So that's a great suggestion, and I even have some coconut oil, so I might even grab it. Great idea. Okay, so this is already browning up, and what I normally do is once this starts browning is I add in the next layer of vegetables that I know takes a little less time than the original crowd. And so what I have over here is some red pepper and onion. So I'm gonna throw that in here on top. I can raise the heat a little bit more, and maybe I will grab Linda's suggestion and use a little coconut oil because I do think that that would add a really nice flavor to what I'm cooking. So I'm gonna pour a little bit of that, and I raised the heat a little, so it's okay if I, use the, there we go. So it's okay that I use the coconut oil because I'm using high temperature cooking. So you can hear it sizzling away. One of my problems, and I do this all the time, is I crowd my pots a little bit more than I should. It would probably be helpful if I used a little less. And so it would cook a little faster and I wouldn't crowd the pot so much. Sometimes that's also a problem because when you're adding so many vegetables, it does release too much liquid, and that hurts the browning process. But we'll get there. I usually just raise the temperature and give it a little extra time, and it'll be totally fine. So the other thing that you can see that we're doing here is we are eating all the different colors of the rainbow. Now, I always talk about how important it is to get nutrient diversity. Nutrient diversity means that you're getting all the different colors of the rainbow. Every color of vegetable represents a different vitamin or mineral. So oftentimes when people are experiencing symptoms that they can't explain, like headaches or fatigue or mood instability or digestive issues, sometimes all that means is there's some nutrient that you are missing, which means that you are a little bit nutrient deficient. And that can easily happen when we get stuck sort of eating the same things all the time. We all have our habits and we all like our routines. And especially when we have busy lives and it's easy to just grab the usual and eat sort of the same things all the time, it's easy to miss out on some other foods that maybe you haven't been including in your diet. So I highly recommend when we walk around the supermarket to try to pick new foods and pick new colors. If you've been eating lots of broccoli and kale, but you've been missing out on carrots and sweet potato, then it's possible you're missing out on some beta carotene or vice versa. So I challenge you to walk around the supermarket and try to choose new foods and new colors. And you can even most of the time use very similar cooking techniques, but just using different foods. For example, I was actually considering using some acorn squash instead of my sweet potato today because I had that in the refrigerator. It's a similar flavor profile and it would have cooked the exact same way. I would do it the same exact cooking strategy. So it's nice to sort of choose new foods and remember how important nutrient diversity is. So let me explain to you what my plan is for this meal. So after all these vegetables cook up nicely, I already have the sweet potato and the cauliflower are already brown. So I'm really just trying to get the onions and the peppers to just like brown up a tiny bit. And then what I'm going to do is to the center of the pot, I'm going to sort of push all my vegetables to the edges, and I'm going to add some minced garlic and some minced ginger. Those two herbs or roots, I should say. I guess, I don't know what garlic is considered a root. And they are especially healthy for us. So we oftentimes hear the term using food as medicine, and I am 100% a very big believer that food is actually a more powerful source of medicine than many times pharmaceutical drugs are, because things like garlic and ginger, when we eat healthy and when we shift inflammation and we shift and reverse chronic conditions using food, what we're doing is we are creating a long-term solution. So it's not short-term, it's not a quick fix, it's a long-term solution that does not have side effects. Pharmaceutical medications, unfortunately, they may act quickly, but they oftentimes have side effects. Sometimes they are not long-term, sometimes they only work in the short term, and we become tolerant, and then we end up needing more medication and more medication. So I am a really big fan of just using food and changing our diet and lifestyle to act as medicine and really cure or reverse a lot of the conditions that we sometimes experience in the United States. And that leads me to an event that is coming up that I am so excited for. So November 17th, we are doing a program called Managing Diabetes. And you do not have to have diabetes to be a part of this or to be interested and find this information valuable, because I'm going to be addressing many aspects of diabetes and health in this lecture that would be appropriate for almost anyone and everyone. I will be talking about the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, why I think they should be considered completely different conditions, because they are actually very different from each other, the way that we manage them and the way that they have work in our body. So we're going to be talking about the differences between those two things, but then also just very general information about inflammation. We hear of the word inflammation all the time. Do we really understand what that even means? So I'm going to be talking about what the word inflammation means, how do we know if we have inflammation, what to do about it, and how is inflammation connected to both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So it's going to be a really informative presentation on November 17th. You can register for that. You'll be seeing advertisements and information about it in the Facebook group, but you can absolutely call the JCA and ask about it and just find out how you could register, or write to me and ask me, that's fine too. But if you have any specific questions about any of those topics that I just mentioned, feel free to write me and ask me those questions, and I will try to address them during that long, hour-long lecture on November 17th at 1 p.m. Okay, so I smell my vegetables cooking up here. My onions are starting to become a little bit more translucent, and the peppers are starting to brown a little bit. So I think it's a good time to follow my what I have described before, sort of make a little center hole in there and I'm going to add a little bit of my, this is olive oil. So what I do when I put olive oil is I lower the temperature, because olive oil has a lower smoke point, and I said before, we never want to burn our fat when we're cooking. So different from the coconut oil, the ghee, and the avocado oil, the olive oil has a lower smoke point. So I'm going to lower the temperature. I'm going to put a little bit of that on the bottom of the pan, and then I'm going to add my garlic and ginger just to that center, and I'm going to watch that like sort of melt in the fat. There we go. And right away you start really smelling that delicious garlic and ginger. So I mentioned using food as medicine. The reason why garlic and ginger could be some options in that in that thought process is that garlic is especially antimicrobial. It has compounds in it like quercetin and some really healthy compounds that will literally help your body fend off viruses and germs. So if we're trying to stay healthy during this time, we're trying to really promote the part of our immune system that will be able to fend off any, invaders, bacteria, virus, flus, things like that. Garlic is a really great food for that. And ginger as well. Ginger, not only is it antimicrobial and can help in those scenarios, but ginger is also especially healthy for our digestion. So if you are experiencing sort of slow digestion or bloating when you're eating or abdominal pain, or if you're having, even if you're experiencing a little bit of irregularity with your bowel movements, ginger could be one of the options that you want to start adding more of to your diet. So I really love those two nutrients. But you're going to get lots of those healthy compounds in everything that we're eating today. We're getting a really complete meal with all the protein that we need because we're mixing chickpeas, and I'm going to be cooking rice later. So I explained before that when we eat only vegetables, sometimes it's a little bit hard to get a complete protein. So we have to make sure that we're mixing lots of varieties of vegetables and rice and corn to ensure that we're getting complete protein. But it's absolutely possible. It's just not as accessible because when you eat animal protein, you get a complete protein right away in that one piece of food. Okay, so this is starting to melt up. I'm going to mix everything together, and then I'm going to talk about the delicious sauce that I'm going to make. I also think it's about time, now that everything is about browned to the extent that I want it to be, it's about time that I season my food. So I'm going to do that. And you guys know, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, how much I love my seasonings. So sorry this is taking me so long. I don't know why the salt is not coming out as fast as I would like. But the flavor profile that I would like to use today is a combination of ginger powder, which I've already added some minced ginger, but it's always good to sort of mix, match those flavors. So we add a little bit more of powdered ginger. I'm going to add some curry powder, and I'm going to be adding more of the curry flavor in a minute when I add my sauce, which is going to include a little bit of curry paste. I have some cumin here. So cumin and curry powder and cardamom are a really good combination. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I talked about last week how helpful it is to add mustard powder when we are, and I'm about to add this, but whenever we are eating cruciferous vegetables. So I'm going to be adding kale at the end of this, because mustard powder actually helps pull out that nutrient in cruciferous vegetables called sulforaphane. It pulls it out, makes it more accessible to us, more available, bioavailable in our body. And so I always try to add mustard powder when I'm cooking with cruciferous vegetables. And then turmeric, that's the last one. So just as a reminder, what I did here was curry powder, turmeric, ginger, cumin, mustard powder, and cardamom. I feel like I'm forgetting, I wanted to add a little bit of garlic, but that's okay. I'll add onion powder instead. Okay, so we'll mix all this up. And I do like to season in layers. So you'll notice that I have seasoned this layer of food, and then once I keep adding like another layer and another layer, then I will probably season again, because I really like those seasonings to be, evenly distributed amongst all the different layers of food that I add. Okay, So what I have here, the last few ingredients that I'm going to be adding towards the end is I have my chickpeas, I have a bag of kale, which one tip is when you come home from the supermarket with green leafy vegetables in a bag like this, I oftentimes put in paper towel to keep it dry. That will keep the leafy greens fresh for a lot longer. So I do put paper towel in here. And sometimes if I even come home with like a bushel of green leafy vegetables and they're especially wet, sometimes you do have to wrap a little bit of it with paper towel because it'll keep it a lot longer in the refrigerator. So I have my chickpeas, my kale, and then I'm also going to be adding, actually, I have bought a bag of organic frozen peas. So you can see here that I have so many good, delicious flavors. When I put this all together on top of rice, it's a really hearty meal, and I don't think you're gonna miss meat at all. Okay, but I do wanna show you my sort of secret ingredients that I'm going to be adding, which I really think will make the entire dish amazing. So I have a can of coconut milk. I got the organic, and this one is light coconut milk and unsweetened. But if you want this to end up being a little bit more creamy, you can absolutely use the full fat coconut milk instead of the light one. I have some almond butter, so I'm going to be adding about 2 tablespoons of almond butter to this mixture. A little bit more than that. And this happens to be the crunchy almond butter. I get this one from Trader Joe's, and what I like about it is I always talk about how great it is to choose foods that when you look at the ingredient label, it only includes the food that you are intending to eat. So for example, when you look at this ingredient label, the only thing that it contains is almonds. There is no other added preservatives or other ingredients like sugar or processed ingredients used to extend the shelf life or the texture or the taste. There is nothing in there but almonds, and that's really what I love about when shopping in the supermarket, is reading ingredient labels and making sure that every ingredient in the food is recognized as a food in your brain, so you know exactly what you're eating. You know that none of these are compounds that could be harmful or unhealthy or even sometimes carcinogenic. So really important to think about that. Okay, so in addition to the almond butter, I'm going to add maybe a half a tablespoon of honey. Let me get a clean spoon. Yeah, about half a tablespoon. So that would be like a teaspoon and a half. Okay. And then I have my replacement for soy sauce. So I don't like using soy in the United States because unfortunately it has a lot of, it's genetically modified and it has sometimes pesticides in it. So I really like to replace soy as much as I can. And coconut aminos is something that you can find right in the condiment aisle where you would buy soy sauce. And it's a great alternative. It tastes exactly like soy sauce. So I'm gonna just sprinkle that in, but it's probably at least a teaspoon, maybe even more. I really like the flavor of this. Okay, and then finally, like I told you, I do have green and red curry paste. Now I'm gonna be very careful with the red curry paste because it's especially spicy and hot, so you have to really be okay with eating really spicy hot foods. But the green curry paste is not spicy at all, and I just love that flavor mixed with the coconut milk. So that is a really great flavor combination. And then, like I said, I have a little bit of that red curry paste just to add a little bit of heat, but it depends on how much you like this. I'm not a big heat type. I get very, like, sort of when it's that hot, I don't really feel like I can't taste my food because my mouth is on fire, and I never understand how people can do that, but everyone has that different preference. So, all right, so again, just as a reminder, I had a whole can of coconut milk. I have 2 tablespoons of almond butter. I have about a half a tablespoon of honey. I probably have 2 teaspoons of coconut Aminos, which is my soy sauce replacement. And then I have about a teaspoon of the green curry paste and probably a half a teaspoon of the red curry paste. So that is going to be a really awesome flavor combination to put on top of my sweet potato, cauliflower, red pepper, onion. I had minced garlic and ginger in there as well, all cooking up with some combinations of fats. So I ended up using some avocado oil, some coconut oil, and some ghee, all of which have a high smoke point, so I was able to cook at a higher temperature. And then the last few ingredients, this is a lot, there's a lot of ingredients in this, but that's why it's going to be such a hearty and delicious meal, is I'm going to have my chickpeas, my green peas, and kale, because I always have to get in my green color. I talked about before how important it is to get all the different colors of the rainbow, and you can see here I'm pretty much hitting a lot of them, right? Maybe I'm missing out on some purple. I'm gonna have to think about adding some eggplant the next time, which really actually sounds pretty good. What do you guys think? Okay, so it's about time to add my last few ingredients. So I'm gonna do my kale, and because I filled my pot up so much, I'm not going to add too much more to it because soon it'll overflow. But the greens really do wilt down very easily, and they're not going to take a lot of space. I'm going to add my sweet peas to this. And then, as I mentioned before, I like to season in layers. So I probably will season one more time with that same combination that I used before, which I'll go through that in a second. Okay, this is really going to cool down the pot because these were frozen. So I may even cover this for a few minutes to make sure that it heats up. But what I will do as that cooks is just go through again the different seasonings that I used, because I think this is important, because obviously seasoning changes our food and makes our food taste so flavorful, but what's important is to know the profiles. So what kinds of combinations of seasonings would you like to use? So for this meal, I'm finding that I'm using curry powder, turmeric, ginger, cardamom, and cumin. Those are a great combination. So I'll say that again: curry powder, turmeric, ginger, cardamom, and cumin. Maybe I said one of them twice, I don't know. But those are the combinations. That's a great combination to have. And then I always use a little bit of mustard powder when I'm cooking with cruciferous green vegetables, because mustard powder allows those green vegetables and the cruciferous vegetables to release a compound called sulforaphane, which is especially healthy for us. So I'm gonna let you guys go, but basically what I'm gonna do here is wait for all this to cook up. I'm gonna add another layer of seasoning, and then I'm going to add my chickpeas as a very last minute thing, and then my delicious sauce, which is a combination of coconut milk, almond butter, 2 tablespoons, half a tablespoon of honey, probably 2 teaspoons of coconut aminos, which is my soy sauce replacement, and I added a teaspoon of green curry paste and a half a teaspoon of red curry paste, which is especially hot. So just be careful there. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I will post pictures of it when it's all finished. I'm really excited to eat it later tonight. And look for information on that diabetes program that I'm going to be conducting on November 17th at 1 p.m. It's going to be talking about, you don't have to have diabetes or even have it in your family to find the information valuable. I'm going to be talking about inflammation. What is it? How do you know if you have it? How to address it? What is the difference between the different types of diabetes? Why should those, I think those conditions should have different names because they're so different from each other. But really just learning how to use food as medicine to address these underlying conditions, and food will be your best long-term solution without side effects versus relying on pharmaceutical medications. So join and come register for that November 17th lecture at 1 p.m. and look for some pictures of this delicious meal later tonight, and let me know if you end up trying it. I'd love to hear about it, and give me your questions and comments. I'd love to help as much as I can. So have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.